also, in fact, talk about another big aspect, which is that for Israel, the problem right now is only growing, that there is a rapidly expanding war theater. What do I mean by that? Again, let's take a look at this map. You see Israel and Gaza clearly mapped out. You all know about the Israel-Hamas conflict and how right now there are, as we speak, missiles being fired by Hamas from Gaza into Israel. So that's a serious concern for Israel, one that they're tackling right now with a massive offensive also that they've launched. But that's not the only issue that they have, because if you look at the problem of Israel's neighbors in the entire region, they have hostile neighbors. So Tel Aviv is, of course, under Hamas rocket fire. Our reporters out there have been telling us also about sirens going off, about the Iron Dome playing a big role in keeping Tel Aviv safe. But it's not just Hamas, but it's also several other parts from where there's a threat. For example, the northern neighbor of Israel, Lebanon, Hezbollah from there has been using this opportunity to once again revive its enmity, firing non-stop at also Israel. So there's a lot of force movement, deployment taking place there as well. Now, after that, Syria, known to be an ally of Hamas, Israel, of course, not on good terms with Syria, fired 2 missiles reportedly at Syria in Damascus and Aleppo. Multiple reports suggested that in Syria, too, there's a tense environment suggesting that a conflict could break out any time now. Israel also in Turkey has asked all of its citizens to leave, saying it's not safe. They've issued multiple advisories on this. Again, a very cold neighbor for Israel. Their ties with Turkey are not the best. As far as Iran is concerned, many say Iran essentially started this conflict, lit that fire that now is raging on. Now, Iran, in fact, has warned of preemptive action, even referring and saying that there'll be an earthquake soon. It's led to a lot of global talk that this conflict is going to just get bigger and bigger, that there are more countries who are also getting involved. But there are many who are also supporting Israel, and it's important to highlight that. The United States, for example, is not just standing firmly with Israel. US President Joe Biden visited, sent out a message that we are with Israel, and they've also sent military aid. They've deployed a second aircraft carrier group to the Mediterranean Sea to help Israel in any way they can. So these, in fact, the United States is the firmest and strongest ally right now of Israel. So at this point, as Israel fights this conflict, not just with Hamas, but with several other neighboring countries, the United States is on their side. Now, as Israel imposed a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, the border crossing with Egypt, Rafah, became even more critical, as it's the only point essentially not controlled by Israel where civilians can enter and leave Gaza by road. We decode why the Rafah border crossing is so important right now for Gaza, essentially a lifeline.
Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have headed towards southern Gaza in recent days, heeding the warning from Israel of an impending ground invasion. The Rafah border in the south represents the only viable escape from Gaza and a lifeline to the outside world. The Rafah border is controlled by Egypt and is the only exit from Gaza that does not lead to Israeli territory. In response to Hamas' attack earlier this month, Israel has imposed a total blockade of Gaza, cutting off electricity to the territory and stopping all supplies of food and fuel. That means the only likely route for humanitarian aid to enter Gaza is via Rafah from Egypt's Sinai region. Egyptian aid trucks have moved closer to the crossing, but it was unclear when or whether they will be able to cross into Gaza. Gazans with dual citizenship have also gathered at the border, hoping to be allowed through.
I am Norwegian citizen. I come every day to the Rafah border. We hear from our embassy. They called us and they told us to come to the border.
Egypt is wary of insecurity near the border with Gaza in northeastern Sinai, where it faced an Islamist insurgency that peaked after 2013 and has now largely been suppressed. Since Hamas took control in Gaza in 2007, Egypt has helped enforce a blockade of the enclave, heavily restricting the flow of people and goods. In 2008, tens of thousands of Palestinians crossed into Sinai after Hamas blasted holes in border fortifications, prompting Egypt to build a stone and cement wall. Arab countries have deep-rooted fears that Israel's latest war with Hamas in Gaza could spark a new wave of permanent displacement from land where Palestinians want to build a state. For Arabs and Palestinians, current events have echoes of Nakba, or catastrophe, when many Palestinians were forced from their homes during the 1948 war that accompanied Israel's creation.